Yeah. I can hear a faraway place, boogie woogie woogie, in place. The kind that I like to hear. It will make toast happy and hands clap, and everyone will be happy and happy. And first, good luck. All right. I will patiently wait for the music to figure out. Yes, the music is It makes me feel so good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Watchwell is my name, and natural philosophy is my game. And for those of you that have seen this show before, which I hope there are countless thousands, you always know that the emphasis is to learn something. But of course, Watchwell is here today on the 12th of August. But of course, I must kind of apologize because the summer has been so crazy for me to try to get in these programs. We're running around and it's just very difficult. So I'm hoping that when my children get back in school, it'll be a little easier for me to curb my schedule for you. Although, in a way, it's kind of a blessing in disguise because I don't try to make anything too difficult on your mind in the summertime, right? Summertime is a kind of a time to grow, to kind of grow physically and have fun, but not necessarily to grow mentally. So, anyway, so having said that, we'll kind of do a little bit of house cleaning, and we're going to have a little kind of a fun today, and I will describe the kinds of topics that I hope to discuss with you. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, this is really not a real blackboard, and I really do not have 150 students in front of me. This is all a big prop in City Hall, and we make it look like it is a blackboard, and I am some kind of eccentric professor. Well, there it is. I'm just an actor on the world stage, so I gave it all away. But we'll have our P.O. box on the screen, and we have our program times. And again, Watchwell is my name, and natural philosophy is my game. And of course, I always mean to talk about physics, and sometimes I have a little kind of philosophic kind of commentary, so I kind of have a little fun. A lot of times people ask me, they say, I really watch your show. He says, you're the guy on television, and I watch your show. But a lot of times, I never know what you're talking about. So I try to make it easy, and then sometimes I just got to make it hard. So I'm going to try to not be too hard. I am going to talk a little bit about, today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Bernoulli's flow problem, which basically is the one that says Q is equal to AV. Okay, and what that really means is that the mass flow rate is equal to the area times the velocity. And the reason why I'm going to talk about that is because I was reading a story about oil, the Iraqi oil. Here we are in Iraq trying to get the oil. Of course, we're trying to quell all the civil disobedience, but nonetheless, the big goal, of course, is we're over there to get that $45 a barrel oil. Okay, so I read a cute little story about how the pipes were broke, and then they got the pipes fixed, and so on and so forth. And of course, they're trying to keep that, they're telling me where to look here, they're trying to keep that away, kind of like from the fighting. Like, you know, you see the fighting every day, and here they're talking about, and they are fighting in Najaf, and, you know, don't go to the holy places, and please don't hurt our holy places. While we slit your throat, we don't want you to hurt our holy places. Okay, so it's kind of a double standard, like, observe our holiness, but as we slit your throat and let your blood drip on our shoes, we don't care about you, you slimy Americans. Now, is that a double standard? I'm not sure. Well, anyway, but that's the stuff I don't want to talk about, see, because that's what you see in the news. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the oil. And then, of course, a little bit of math involved. I have to have my mandatory math. But I want to have a little fun also. I want to have a little bit of fun today with the hyphen. I said I was going to talk about that on the last show. And I want to talk about the importance of the hyphen. Why the hyphen is so important. And then if we have a little time, then we'll talk a little bit about our Where Are We segment. Where Are We segment, and I had a link about bridges that I didn't get to. And again, what I was talking about before is that sometimes people tell me that when I am talking to them, they always kind of get bogged down by the math, and I try to keep it as actually as simple as I can. Because again, this is an open program. This is not a university setting, and this is not like learning at a distance and so on and so forth. So it's kind of like I just kind of throw it against the wall, and if it sticks, then somebody absorbs something. But of course, the stick, what I mean by stick is that there are enough observers and minds hoping that they would drink it in. So what I'm going to do, kind of pepper it in as, like I mentioned before, as my children go back to school and we all kind of get into our kind of fall groove, our learning groove, is a while ago here. You can get a close-up of this, Andy. I dug this out of one of my archives here. I once took a course at the University of Wisconsin. It's called Technology in America. And it's a rather interesting book. And in fact, I got to be in the course. And anyway, it's about a lot of the technology that were the cornerstones of America, like the beginnings of Silicon Valley and Thomas Edison and Henry Ford and so on and so forth. So maybe what I will do for the autumn, kind of looking ahead, is I'll try to pepper my show with a little bit of kind of history behind the various technology that we are exposed to, and then I'll throw in like a little bit of math. So again, I always try to make for you interesting show. And it's funny, television, I always say this before, television is always a strange medium because the feedback is always very, very delayed. And like here, I do these shows and here I am talking, and I'm talking to who? I'm talking to the cameraman, and I'm talking to the lights. Hello, Mr. Light, you're a nice light. And so here I'm standing here talking to these props, and the feedback is so delayed, I really don't know, who's watching it, who's enjoying it, who's not enjoying it, so on and so forth. So then my wife and I, my beautiful wife Bernice, and here we are like walking at the fair, and then all of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky, someone will come out of the crowd and say, "You're that guy on television. Boy, I just like the stuff that you talk about, especially the time when you were talking about the Titanic or something that happened 4 years ago." So, you never know who's watching. And, of course, I appreciate the fact that you are watching, but sometimes I just always don't know, so it's kind of crazy. So, again, that's a kind of a long lead in here. But anyway, it's kind of like, in defense, they're telling me where to look here. Where am I looking? Oh, there, that's my look. Okay, see. Okay, so kind of like in defense of my presence, I just say I come here and I try to have fun, and then I do get delayed feedback, and people tell me they like it. So we kind of hang in there like a monkey in a cage. Okay, so we better get down to some real work here, otherwise the guy will just say it's gibberish. But let me say one more time that as September rolls around and my kids get back in school, I will in fact try to be more diligent and try to getting a regular schedule for you, because it's not about me, it's about you. I can just sit in my study and I can read through my own books and kind of pluck my own hairs, the little I have, but it is all for you. So we better get going here. We're going to do a little science and have a little fun. First of all, I'm going to say one thing here real quick. So we'll talk about this oil and that business. It'll be kind of fun. That'll be our scientific part. Now, before we get to the hyphen, I just want to say here one more time that we had on a couple shows back, in fact, this was already 2 shows back, that the Fahrenheit 9/11, I was so surprised that the Fahrenheit 9/11 is still in the show houses. So when you talk about the profitability, let's talk about the money, profitability. So Michael Moore, right, so Limbaugh and Hannity and those guys, they hate Michael Moore, but hey, he's laughing all the way to the bank. So Michael Moore put up about the $6 million, right, $6 million on a very high-risk documentary. And, of course, now it's still in the show houses, and they're saying that it's surpassed 110 million, okay? So a little bit of what do you call it? This is not science. This is arithmetic. You take 110 and divide it by 6. That's like a little bit of pocket change. So he's made a little bit of money, and who knows what. So anyway, but the reason why I had in a previous show, again, here I'm just kind of going in circles here. On the previous show, I spent a little time, for those of you who remember the formula, I'm not going to repeat it now. And I had a whole little bit of fun where I showed you the mathematical formula to change from Fahrenheit to centigrade. So then I said that Fahrenheit, F-A-H-R-E-N-H-E-I-T, that Fahrenheit 9/11 is equal to, see this is equal to, is like math, is equal to 488.3 Celsius. C-S-I-U-S. Well, I'm not going to go through the formula, but now it's really not that hard. So if you want, you can go and just look in one of your physics books, or when you go back to school, ask one of your teachers and say, "Hey, there was this guy on television that told me that Fahrenheit 9/11 isn't really Fahrenheit 9/11, that it's 488 degrees Celsius. Can you please explain that to me, professor, teacher?" And he'll say, oh, I'd be glad to. And so, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to talk, that's a little nutty. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the hyphen, okay? This is going to be kind of like my kind of philosophical, silly part. And then I'm going to spend a little time on the thing, on the flow. We got to get with the flow. And I'll explain a little bit about that here. I have to kind of watch my time here. Okay, now, what I want to talk about now, and then again, this is kind of like the little, oh, let's see, what would you call it? You wouldn't call it, let's see, what would you call it? Well, you wouldn't call it logic, you wouldn't call it politics, you wouldn't call it history. I guess you would call it, what would you call it? Oh, I suppose rhetoric. I suppose that's as good of a name as any. We'll call this rhetoric. So, what I want to talk about here is I want to talk about the importance of this little guy right here. And of course, in the English language, we call this the hyphen. H-Y-P-H, H-Y-P-A, can't spell. H-Y-P-H-E-N. Okay, so what is the importance of the hyphen? He says, pourquoi? Okay, that means why. Okay, so why is the hyphen important? Well, the hyphen is a way of kind of joining two words and giving them an additional meaning or clarity in the English language. So again, let me repeat that again. The use of the hyphen in the English language is a way of joining two words and giving them a sense of greater clarity, okay? And so we know in our kind of everyday world, you know, you hear the word hyphen. So the one, of course, that's used all the time. So here we are supposed to be like living in this colorblind society, but yet greater clarification is often desired. So, in the use of the hyphen referring to the kind of people who are living in the Amerique, we have different kinds of hyphens. So we have whatever we have. I don't know. We have Irish Americans. Irish, R-I-S-H. So we have Irish Americans. Or we have Italian Americans. Or we have German Americans. Or we have Afro-Americans, Afro-Americans. Or we have the hyphen to clarify things, right? So we have Afro-Americans, we have Spanish Americans, we have whatever. So the idea is that you use the hyphen to add to or clarify. So why I'm calling upon the importance of the hyphen here is the following. Because Watchwell doesn't like the war on terrorism. What? You don't like the war on terrorism, and you don't want America to be safe, and you want another 9/11, and people to die, and everything will be bad and everything. And the fact is, I don't like the war on terrorism because now I'm back to the corner, is because when you say war on terrorism, it is much too vague. Yes, I don't like terrorists. I don't like Saudi terrorists crashing into our buildings. Or I wouldn't like Iraqi terrorists to kill more Marines. So the idea is we must use, here's what Watchwell is saying, we must use the hyphen. We must use the hyphen to help George Bush, or whatever our other future president may be, to clarify who are the enemies that we must be after. So when we want to say, we're going to fight the war on terrorism, because terrorism is bad, and wherever terrorism is, and who's ever doing it, that's the people that we just got to get, okay? So I'm just trying to help George Bush, and I want to say, well, we have got to clarify the terrorists. Why, at the moment, the terrorists that we seem to be after the most, well, they happen to be Iraqi terrorists. Well, at least that clarifies it a little bit, so you can say, well, I'm going to send out my army to kill me some terrorists. Well, what do you know? There might be terrorists down in Georgia, or there might be terrorists in Africa, or there might be New Zealand terrorists. You ever think about that? There's probably terrorists in New Zealand, and who knows what they're doing. They're terrorizing somebody. So we got to know which terrorists that we're going to get. So it's like I said before, if we know that we're fighting Iraqi terrorists, well, that limits it down. Or how about the Saudi? You know, let's say the fact we had Saudi terrorists who crashed into the World Trade Center. Or George Bush, after he gets through with the Iraqi terrorists, he might want to get him some Iranian terrorists. Well, at least we know what terrorists is after. Or how about them Pakistani terrorists? How about them Afghani terrorists? Well, okay, at least if we use the little hyphen, it kind of helps clarify the issue. Because now there could be terrorists that are just right down right here in Chicago. While there might be mafia terrorists that are terrorizing somebody. So we got to be clear on which terrorists we want to get. Now I just want to say, I'm being kind of silly and kind of truthful in a kind of a sort of a, how you say it here? Kind of a tongue-in-cheek sort of way. Now, I'm not through with the hyphen. I'm almost through. But again, I'm just trying to help out George Bush. If we use the hyphen, then we kind of know who the enemy really is, or who the enemy is supposed to be. Now, let me say one more thing about to kind of make that point a little clearer. Now, same thing we got to talk about, again, one more time, the use of the hyphen to help all of us. Because now, like say, for instance, after we get rid of all the terrorists in the world, then there'll be other enemies in the world. And so we're going to get, after we get all the terrorists, then the next group of people that we got to get all out of our lives is the drunks. We're going to get all the drunks, okay? We've got to get all the drunks. But now you say, so then all of a sudden all the people and the politicians and the cops are going to say, we're fighting the war on drunks. We're fighting the war on drunks. But now, that sounds a little vague to me. So now let's talk about who are the drunks. Let's use that little hyphen again. Let's talk about Irish drunks, right? They always say that Irish people used to drink a lot. So let's talk about Irish drunks. Well, are they the only ones? Let's think about it. How about men drunks? Oh yeah, there are more men that drink than women. So we got to get all the men drunks. They're the worst ones. But then again, mixed in with the men drunks, you know what? There might be women drunks. So there might be women drunks. So, you know what I mean? You can start using that hyphen to kind of clarify all kinds of things. And how about addicts? Let's declare war on addicts. But now, what kind of addicts? If you use the hyphen, well, you might have drug addicts. You might have sex addicts. I don't know. You might have addicts in your house. It kind of goes on and on and on as to what it is you should do. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't be afraid to use the hyphen. It'll help clarify your arguments. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That was only 5 or 6 minutes out of your life. Okay, being silly. All right, we're moving along here. Okay, now we are going to talk a little bit about science. Now, if we get to the Where Are We segment, we'll do that. If not, we'll save it for the next time. My kids were kind of teasing me. They're saying, well, sometimes, Dad, you always talk about all you talk about is just the sunrise and the sunsets and moon and the stars. And I know about all that stuff because I see the stars every night in the sky, so I don't have to talk about it. So if I don't get to a big planet segment, then so be it. My kids will tease me. So now we got a few minutes left here. Now let's talk about here, but kind of like we're going to go with the flow. So here it is. We're going to go with the flow. And the flow, of course, that we're talking about is the flow of the oil, right? So the flow of the oil that starts out, and well, who knows where it starts out. Some of the oil starts out in Venezuela, some of the oil starts out in Saudi Arabia, some starts in Mexico, and then it comes on the ships, and then it goes to the refineries, and then from the refineries it goes in the trucks, and then it comes to the gasoline stations, and then from the gasoline station it goes in your car, right? So we all kind of understand the chain of events. But of course, now you understand some of it, everyone knows, is that the price of oil has been going up. So at the source, of course, the spec market drives it up, I mean, in reality. But anyway, so the price of the oil is going up, and then it comes from Saudi Arabia, and then it goes to the refineries back here, and then it goes, and then they make the oil into gas and into plastic and into paint and oil and motor oil and everything else. But of course, we know over here where you get down here where you're paying $1.96. Of course, that's your kind of like your bottom line. But what I want to do is I read a kind of an interesting story, so I'm going to kind of back up. So, okay, so you know the chain of events is you get the oil from Saudi Arabia, and then it comes across the ocean to a refinery in California or Texas or Louisiana, and then it comes all over the trucks, comes to the gas stations, come here, you put it in the car, and then you go visit your girlfriend. Okay, so this part here you kind of understand, okay, the money and the car and the gas and the whole thing, so let's go backwards. So now let's go backwards about to the part where the oil is coming from Saudi Arabia. Well, the oil I want to talk to about is not from Saudi Arabia, but is now coming from Iraq. So now they are repairing the oil lines in Iraq. Okay, Iraq. So I was reading the story, and it turns out that I had to do a little quick metric conversion. So they're talking about, they're saying, well, we are pleased to announce that one of the two pipelines is repaired. He says we have two pipelines that are pumping approximately 1.6 million barrels per day. And the pipelines, there are two pipelines that are almost the same in diameter, and the one is 107 centimeters in diameter, and the other one is 122 centimeters in diameter. So Watchwell had to do a little metric thing here, a metric conversion as to how I can equate that into how long it takes to fill up the ships that take the oil. So we got to do a little bit of metric conversion. So I said before that what we want to talk about is we want to figure out to understand what I call the QAV, which kind of is a little science. It means, and the A here stands for area, the V stands for the velocity of the flow, and the C stands for the mass flow rate. So what we first got to do is we got to figure out what the area is, and so we have to quickly do a metric conversion. And so let's take our 107. So 107 centimeters. Okay, I'm just doing this on my feet now. So this is a little bit of metric here. So you got to take centimeters, and then you got to multiply times 2.54 centimeters per inch, okay? And then that cancels out. And if I do it real quickly for you, okay, I'm doing this on my feet very quickly. So 107 divided by 2.54 equals 41.1. So approximately 42 inches, okay? So you can relate to that. In the United States, you can relate to the inches, okay? 42 inches across. So we got this big pipe. So the oil is flowing in this big thing, which is 42 inches or 107 centimeters. Okay, so you can relate to that. So 42 inches is really a pretty big pipe. I mean, that's a big diameter pipe. So what we got to do real quick is we got to convert this, and we got to go from the flow of the oil to figure out the velocity. So, oh no, that's not my music. I hope not. I'm listening for my music. Oh no, we got a little time. Okay, now I got to speed up the pace though. So in order to do this thing over here, we got to take. We now know that we have a pipe that's 42 inches across. Okay, and it said in this article that there were two pipelines, but one of them was rated at 700,000 barrels per day. Okay, so that's 700,000 barrels per day. So if you want to just slow it down to, let's just say, to an hour. So we take 700,000. I'm going fast now. Then divided by 24 is that's a lot of oil. Holy smokes! That's 29,166 barrels per hour. That is a lot of oil. Now, okay, so now we're melting it down. So now we got it down to an hour. So now let's get it down to a minute because like barrels per minute or cubic feet per minute is more relatable. So now we take that same number, 29,166 divided by 60, Yeah, it means that it's 486.1 barrels. I'll stop there. Barrels per minute. Now that is really moving right along. And what they do, of course, they have a big pipeline, and then they have the ships out in the ocean, and then they fill up the ships, and then they bring the ships back. But now let's see if we can make some semblance here. So let's stop there. So we have 486. That's a little more doable. 486 barrels per minute. But now a barrel, 1 barrel of oil, you probably didn't know this, 1 barrel of oil equals 42 gallons, okay? So now you can kind of relate to that because you buy gallons, buy gasoline at the gallon. Of course, oil is in a thick form and then it gets, you know, kind of like distilled and so on and so forth. It's different, but nonetheless, the measure for a barrel is 42 gallons, okay? So let's just keep it in gallons in a raw refined form. So then let's say we have 42 gallons, and here, if you want to know what this is in gallons, like from the gallon in your car, I gotta hurry, watch my time here. You have 486.1 times 42 is, that's a lot, holy cow. That's 20,416 gallons per minute that this thing is pumping out. So they have some huge things. So now, I don't know if I'll get to all the conversions. So now what you really want to do, if you want to get it in total English units, you have to convert gallons, so it ends up being like inches, so you can get it. But I'm just going to kind of outline it for you because I think I'm going to run out of time. So what we have to do is we have to take this we have to find the area of our pipe, and the area, of course, is equal to pi over 4 times d squared would give us inches squared over here. And then what we got to do is we have to take all this gallon business, and we have to convert it by 231, okay? And it gets a little messy, so then you take gallons and you convert a gallon as 231 inches cubed per gallon. And then you get it all in workable forms, and you can actually break it down into knowing what the flow rate is, knowing what the area is. You can get what the velocity of this oil is flowing through this line. I'm hearing my music in the background. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I will talk over it quickly. I didn't get to the Where Are We segment. We'll get that next time. We were just trying to kind of get with the flow. This was a crazy show. I'll try to get back to more normal when my kids go back to school in September. Watchwell is my name. Natural velocity is my game. And until we see you next time, goodbye. Au revoir. Arrivederci. We'll see you. Bye.